And we are back on the build phase. I'm Mr. Bennett. Today I'm going to talk about the Ohio Regional that happened over this last weekend. Before I do, I want to give a shout out to all the patrons of this show. If you like what we're doing here, you can support us at patreon.com/thebuildphase and join the coolest clubhouse in Versus. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to Vern for winning the side event on Friday. Congratulations to Mitch for winning the side event on Sunday. And of course, congratulations to PJ, our regional champion. Just another event that made me peanut butter and jealous. It's so there's always something going on. Like I got a choir concert or roller derby event or a soccer game or the playoffs or the whatever. Like, dude, kids are so time consuming, and I just get so jealous of seeing guys be able to travel for these events. I heard on Bert's podcast he drove 10 hours one way, so 20 hours to get to this event, which is wild. Like, that's awesome. So shout out to Scott and Epic Loot Games, of course. Every event for Versus that has happened in that store has been an absolute knockout. The players rave about it. The side events are always fun. I really like that the Versus community is lucky enough to have this store in our system, in our ecosystem. So the event was the Super Powers. The breakdown of main characters was pretty decent. There was a glut of people on Silver Surfer, 5, 3 Bark Monsters, 3 Mr. Fantastics, 3 Dark Phoenixes, and then 1 each Baron Mordo, Ms. Marvel, and Monica Rambeau. Now, for Super Powers, it kind of makes sense that these super power dependent main characters would sort of rise to the top. Silver Surfer is an absolute house, and his one drawback has always been you have to get all these locations in order for him to have his first level up. Super Powers kind of solves that problem for you, so I'm not surprised to see that he showed up in relatively large numbers. If you've listened to some of the other tournament coverage on this event, a theme that has come up has been that of slow play. I don't want to get too deep into this. Suffice to say, every interaction I've had with the particular player who sort of triggered all of this conversation has been positive. But I am also aware of this. So generally speaking, the first time I talked about slow play on this show was, gosh, like 2016, I think, maybe 2017, but it was very early into the podcast where we initially started this came up at a tournament. I think it's pretty reasonable for people to sit down at the table in basically any card game and really want to make the right choice, especially when the pressure is on, when there's stakes, potentially prize money, other cool things that you can get your hands on as far as prize, and versus we have these giant cards. And it does start to slow things down. Like, you really, really want to make sure that you're getting it right. But the problem is, if the game's supposed to be played in 1 hour, you do not have an hour. You have half of that time. And too often, I think folks think about it as you get as much time as you need. No, you don't get as much time as you need. You get half of that time. And I think just from a consideration standpoint, civility for our other players, it's pretty reasonable. I have always been of the mind that if you're the person who has to be like, hey, can we move this forward? You kind of get looked at as the bad guy, but really that's not the case. I think we should really normalize the ability to say, hey, I'm taking a 10-second turn. You're taking a 3-minute turn. That's not fair. So that's more or less the line that has been taken on a couple of the other shows. Bert talked about it. Apex talked about it. And I generally agree, both in terms of respect for all of our players, but like, hey, it's pretty reasonable to expect for games to conclude at a reasonable pace. So overall, having watched the streams, kind of participated from the outside, I feel like this is another really positive event for our game. I do wish these were bigger. It is a little sad to see the kind of dwindling size of versus events. We had such a great year, or it felt like we had such a great year last year with all the hype and the activity, um, and just so much of that energy feels like it has just kind of left the room, and that's a little bit of a bummer. Want to, I don't want the focus for any tournament, any event to be on like the, oh, this could have been done better. Oh, that could have been done better. Looking at what happened and trying to figure out ways to do things better in the future, I think is really healthy, and we absolutely should do that. But the big headline from this event should be a cool format, a well-run event. The prizing was awesome. The players reported having a good time, generally speaking, and I think all of that is really cool. So there is some surviving competitive versus, even though what the future holds for our game is still very kind of shrouded in mystery and unknown. I think next week I'm going to start looking back through cards that I haven't thought about in a long time. Potentially, I'm going to be trying to look for cards that I haven't given much thought to ever. I want to look for cards that are maybe explicitly not competitive cards and try to build decks around them and do some analysis. I think this will be a fun thought experiment. We'll see. If I dive into it and everybody's like, who cares about a bad deck built with bad cards, then okay, we'll throw that idea away. But I'm excited to try this out and try to put some like weird thing, like the obvious, the telegraphed, the most predictable ever version of this would be something like saying, hey, let's build a deck with Kid Kaiju, or let's try to make Daredevil. Now, I do think Daredevil's probably more playable now than he was back in the day. Kid Kaiju is still probably pretty dumpster tier, more likely than not. I don't know if that's quite the approach I want to take, is just picking a comically unpopular main character. I think, or I phrase that poorly, a comically unpowerful main character. I think what I would prefer to do is try to find something that's like middle of the road and try to build with like a kitchen table environment in mind. So that's the approach for next week. Again, congratulations to Vern, Mitch, and PJ. Thanks to Scott for putting on this awesome event in Ohio. And of course, shout out to the whole community, the players who show up for this stuff, the people who get excited about it in Discord. This is a great place to be. Versus is a great game, and I'm glad to still be here talking about it so many years on. So this has been the Build Phase. I'm Mr. Ben, and you should go win some games.